Let me give an example. At the Harvard admission, so the Students for Fair Admissions, you're familiar with that Supreme Court case? It's the highest profile Supreme Court case that comes around DEI and college admissions. Are you aware of that?
Go ahead.
You should educate yourself on it. We found out that Asians they got a 300-point deduction on standardized tests versus black students. White people got a 100-point deduction on entrance tests in Harvard University versus black students. This is the Students for Fair Admissions Supreme Court case that all of you guys should look up.
Charlie Kirk delivers a masterclass on why DEI isn't helping, it's hurting. From the very beginning, Charlie Kirk makes it clear that unity, not diversity for its own sake, is what makes a nation strong. The student tries to justify race-based policies, but Charlie Kirk holds the line on merit, logic, and equality under the law. What follows is Charlie Kirk walking through history, legal precedent, and common sense to expose how DEI as it's practiced today is more about discrimination than inclusion.
Yes. How you doing, Charlie? We good? How you doing? It's hot today, ain't it? Gotta get used to it down here, man. Right before we start, could I please get a signed hat?
Depends.
Do you charge cheddar around here? You charge?
No, I've been throwing out hats for free.
Damn, I just gotta jump next time, I guess. All right, well, I feel pretty American today. We're down to our roots, standing up for what we believe in. I think that's powerful. I'm pretty sure a branch of that is why you're here. I just had one question for you real quick. Probably go into two. Or three, or four, or five, whatever. So, all right. I've heard you say before that you think diversity is a weakness. I just want to ask you why you think diversity is a weakness.
Well, think about it. Unity is a strength. Diversity is not. If you're trying to create a team, for example, if you guys want to win the SEC again, of which I am pulling for Texas A&M to win an SEC championship again, and every single player is getting different call signs, that is definitionally different. And unity is what creates a good football team. We're brought together by what brings us together, not what is different. And so differences are actually not a strength when you're trying to create a team, a country, a military, a football team, a unit, a corporation, or so on and so forth.
Okay, well, glad we're not a football team. I'm glad we're a country. So
it's a metaphor, right?
I get you. So you say different call signs. How is me being diverse from someone in the crowd here, us getting different call signs?
Well, I mean, again, it's a metaphor, right?
Well, yeah, but you use a metaphor to explain.
Right, so for example, if someone, I'll try to boil it down for you so you can understand.
I gotcha.
If like Ilhan Omar comes into America and doesn't share our values, doesn't speak our language, and hates America, different call signs, not united, diversity becomes a weakness, not a strength. When you import a lot of people that don't share your values, like we have been from Somalia and from the third world, all of a sudden they say diversity is a strength. Is it really? Is diversity a strength in Minneapolis? Is that really a strength? No. You know what is a strength? The unity we find in being an American, not in being Muslim or in being whatever faction or tribe that you come from.
Okay, so basically, like, just to make sure I'm getting this, if we're all united as one thing, not diverse.
E pluribus unum. So it's the Latin phrase, out of many, one.
Okay.
So the diversity is our strength is at odds with what's on every one of your dollar bills. On your dollar bill is a phrase, e pluribus unum, which means it doesn't matter your skin color, your background. Our founders did not say diversity is our strength. They said we are all humanity and that is our strength, which is fundamentally different than the phrase diversity is our strength.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought up the founding fathers then, because they weren't all the same person. There was so many people that made up America.
There were many of them, you're right.
Okay, yeah, but there were so many people that made up America. There were so many tribes that were here before us, and they're the whole reason why we even won the American Revolution. So in that sense, diversity would be a strength. In World War II, we used Navajo language.
We won the revolution because of the French, not because of the Native Americans.
And they're not Americans, so that's still diverse. That still goes to my point.
They were European, of which was our ancestry. But okay, what's the point? Fair enough. I'm not.
My point is that I believe that your statement that diversity is a weakness is just simply not true.
Okay, so let's put it on you. Show me an institution, a company, a sports organization that aims to get more diverse for diversity's sake and becomes more excellent. Show me one example.
I'll go even better than that. I'll show you a country that did that.
Okay, pause. This part is big. Charlie Kirk just flipped the whole conversation. When Charlie Kirk asks for one example of diversity making something more excellent, it kind of exposes the whole flaw in the argument. Like the students trying to debate with feelings, but Charlie Kirk is coming in with facts and asking for real proof. Charlie Kirk's challenge here is bold and straight up logical.
During World War II, we used the Navajo language to counteract German forces. Without their language and the diversity in this country, we wouldn't be able to do any of that.
Okay, they were Americans and American soldiers, and in fact, we looked at them as equal human beings, and we were able to use a different language to our advantage. In fact, what we were fighting for was the promise of e pluribus unum. We were fighting up against Japanese totalitarianism and Nazi totalitarianism, and I will go an even step further. At every organization that tries to make diversity a priority, whether it be Harvard that ignored the Students for Fair Admission course, you lower excellence and you elevate diversity, which lowers the flourishing and the capacity for any organization, company, or group of people to be the best versions of themselves.
So you're very anti-DEI, I suppose.
Oh yes, very much so. I mean, like, for example, do you think the NBA should be half Asian?
I don't care if they're better than any of the players that come out of our
if they're better,
combine.
exactly. Excellence matters more than skin color. We agree. Yes, better.
We don't agree.
Better, not skin color. That's what we are pro merit, not pro DEI. That's the point.
If you believe that is true, then you would support DEI, because DEI is what defends other people that are foreign.
What are you talking about?
DEI is literally pro-diversity. We need these protections to be able to protect people that are different from us.
How is it that the NBA is 75% black? It's because they're better at basketball than white people generally are. It's not because
That's because of DEI.
No, oh, really? What DEI? No, seriously. What DEI program or policy does the NBA have? Do they have a stated goal saying we're only going to hire black people? No, the NBA owners say we want the best basketball players, and they end up with a 75% black league. The NFL, it's a cutthroat business. They want the best possible football players. They end up with 50% of the NFL being a black league. We want the best. We want better. We don't care about the color of your skin. We want merit and we want excellence in this country.
So, this is the core of it. Charlie Kirk is saying we should care about who's best, not what box they check. Charlie Kirk believes in judging people based on what they can do, not what they look like. And that's what makes Charlie Kirk so sharp in these debates. He simplifies everything without dumbing it down. And Charlie Kirk always brings it back to merit and character.
If it wasn't for DEI, we wouldn't be giving other people a chance that aren't American or white. That's the whole point of DEI.
No, it's not.
To give
in fact,
other people a
DEI
chance.
is at odds with the 14th Amendment. Explain to me. The 14th Amendment says you cannot discriminate based on color, based on race. Actually, it's even more. That's the Civil Rights Act. Going back to the 14th Amendment says, literally at its core, that we have a human equality because we're all human beings. That DEI says, actually, we understand that, but we're going to give more preferences to this skin color over that skin color because diversity is our strength. Explain to me how that works.
It works because there was so many years of just constant turmoil between people that weren't our skin color. So you need to instill extra protections.
Oh, so you need to discriminate against white people now? That's what it is.
How am I discriminating against white people?
Let me give you an example. At the Harvard admission, so the Students for Fair Admissions, you're familiar with that Supreme Court case? It's the highest profile Supreme Court case that comes around DEI and college admissions. Are you aware of that?
Go ahead.
You should educate yourself on it. We found out that Asians they got a 300-point deduction on standardized tests versus black students. White people got a 100-point deduction on entrance tests in Harvard University versus black students. This is the Students for Fair Admission Supreme Court case that all of you guys should look up. In fact, in practice, we saw it was much easier to get into Harvard as a black student, regardless if your test scores were lower than a white student, even if your test scores were higher. That is active discrimination against Asian and white people and against everything that we as Americans stand for and that we believe in. That is racism at its core.
I agree that it is racism.
Oh, DEI is racism. Can we agree?
I didn't say DEI was racism.
No, I just said that's racism.
You described something that happened with Harvard admissions.
No, in hundreds of schools.
Okay, but you brought up Harvard.
Because that is the test case. But we saw the documents from hundreds of schools.
I'm just going to go off of what you said. You said Harvard. You said it was racism. I said I agreed. When Harvard went to court, did they say that DEI allowed them to do that and they only did that because of DEI?
They did it because of affirmative action, which is a outgrowth of DEI. They literally said this was because of our stated affirmative action policies. So affirmative action and DEI are one and the same. They are sister policies of one another. So they said, literally, the Students for Fair Admission course in front of the Supreme Court that was ruled unconstitutional, by the way, is affirmative action constitutional? And found out, no, actually it's not constitutional to preference one racial group over another when another racial group is as qualified, if not more qualified, just because you want college to everyone to look different. I don't care if college looks different. I care about if you have a competency, if you have excellence, and if you have merit. I care if you are qualified, not whether or not you are black, white, Asian, Mexican. I want the best, not the most colorful.
Okay, but if you realize, if you get rid of the protections that were protecting those people previously,
such as,
you're going to allow people that are not merit-based
such
to get
as,
in.
I'm not trying to get rid of the 14th Amendment.
You're trying to get rid of DEI.
Well, no, first of all, DEI is not a law. DEI, actually, well, affirmative action was. DEI is the forceful implementation of racial standarding practices and racial quotas. DEI is basically saying we are going to build a college and organization based on hyper-racialization, not on the pursuit of excellence. At the University of California, in order to get a job at the University of California, you had to submit a diversity statement as the first thing that they would look at, and 75% of white applicants were immediately dismissed upon the review of their diversity statement. That is DEI in practice. That is affirmative action in practice. And can't we both agree we want a colorblind society, not a race-obsessed society? Can't we agree to that?
If you allow all of society to be colorblind and if you're throwing away all these years of just constant turmoil towards other races, you're going to go towards...
Wait, so you don't want colorblind?
What do you mean?
Do you want colorblind? Do you want us to get closer to a society where we care about character, not skin color? Don't you believe that the content of character should matter more than skin color?
I believe that you should not be getting rid of protections that are ensuring
like what?
That
Tell me what you are talking.
You're quite literally getting rid of
DEI is not a protection. DEI is an elevation. It's a different thing. DEI is not a protection against discrimination. DEI is an elevation, which is discrimination. DEI is that I'm going to take this group of people and promote them, not based on anything they've earned. DEI stands for didn't earn it, just so you know. And we're going to elevate them to a place in a position of authority or power and circumstance just because they have a different pigmentation. We think that is immoral and wrong, and everything against what we believe in as Americans. Everything.
So would you agree that the current federal government, the administration, that they're not DEI hires, of course? You would agree that they're all there because of merit?
Well, some of them are there because they're friends of the president, but no one was hired because of their race. You know who is a DEI hire? Tim Walz was a DEI hire. They needed a white guy on their ticket because they were doing bad with white men. Newsflash, we still won white men by nearly 30 points. Didn't work. And so they literally only chose Tim Walz because of the color of his skin. Kamala Harris was a DEI hire. They said, we need a black woman on our ticket. Ketanji Brown Jackson was a DEI hire. DEI is when you publicly state a criteria where I want a certain race, I want a certain group, I want a certain skin color, certain pigmentation. So can you point to one person in the Trump administration that was hired because of their race? One person?
I didn't say because of race.
No, that's what DEI is, though.
All right, then, but I simply asked, do you believe that they're all there because of their merit, that they all should be there?
Yeah, I mean, I've defended all of them, of course.
So yes. So what about when Signalgate happened, when you let a reporter
Say that again?
What about Signalgate, when you let a reporter hear about war plans? Do you think that was merit-based?
Well, first of all, we don't even know who did it. So when it's merit-based, you could still make mistakes. Who did it, actually? Who did Signalgate? Who let the reporter in? Tell me.
It was freaking
Who did
Paul.
it? Who?
What's his name?
Who? Yeah, you don't know.
Paul.
Actually, we don't know. No one actually knows. Could have been Mike Waltz. It could have been his staffer. It could have been Dan Caldwell. We actually don't know. So don't come up here professing to know something you don't know, that it's actually still an active Department of Justice investigation. Number two, what's that contention? That people might make mistakes and errors? Yes. But you know what? Pete Hegseth is much more qualified than Lloyd Austin, because Pete Hegseth was a frontline warrior and fighter on the front lines of our war. In fact, I did not hear a single liberal complain about Lloyd Austin when he was hospitalized without telling anybody for nearly a week that interrupted the chain of command and the flow of our national security when Joe Biden was president. This is the most qualified cabinet in American history that we have seen. People that have fought the wars, people that have run businesses, people that have done the most consequential decisions ever. It's an anti-DEI administration ever. Where we look at Joe Biden, you had Kamala Harris that literally has done nothing meaningful in her life, who was only there because she was, a black woman and she fit a specific criteria box. And so we ask the question, when you are trying to build the best, shouldn't the best be the only thing you care about, not the color of one's skin? That is why we are pro-merit and anti-DEI.
So Kamala Harris was a DEI hire then?
Yes, they said they needed a person of color on the ticket. I mean,
Okay.
obviously.
Not an attorney, right?
You could still be an attorney and be a moron.
Okay. I got you. But a businessman can run for president, right?
And actually win twice and still be your president, yes.
Right. So you believe that someone who was the vice president...
Aren't you with Dean and Parker's crew?
No.
I think you are, actually. No, you're...
No.
This is... Dean, you are not sending your best.
Do you want to see
Dean,
my ID?
you are not sending your best.
I'm not
You're
with
not.
him.
I can't hear you. You're not sending your best. Anyway, last question.
You think someone who's a vice president isn't qualified to be president?
She shouldn't have been vice president in the first place.
Why not? They voted for her.
Okay, yes. The point being is that she was a DEI pick. If your argument, if the hill you want to die on, is that Kamala Harris is the best of DEI, good luck with that. I will rest my case. We want merit. You want Kamala Harris. We're going to live in a much better country. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
No hat.
Thank you. No hat.
By the end of this debate, Charlie Kirk leaves no room for confusion. Charlie Kirk exposes DEI for what it really is. Modern-day discrimination dressed up as fairness. Charlie Kirk reminds everyone that equality should mean the same rules for everyone, not special treatment for certain groups. From the first metaphor to the last challenge, Charlie Kirk didn't just argue. Charlie Kirk educated. This is why Charlie Kirk keeps winning these debates. He's consistent, clear, and always anchored in principle.